Come on. You know, it changed colors.
Yeah, whatever.
So maybe it's live.
Yeah, right. It lies. If you want to support the blanket fort and the air conditioning, because now it's back in the 90s.
And it's headed for 100 again.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yes, for at least the next 3-4 days.
Air conditioning, please. God,
Don't
please.
wiggle it.
I'm willing it for emphasis.
Yes,
Makes
but
it
that
hard to
doesn't
read,
help.
though.
Yes,
If that bunch doesn't know what's already on there, I don't know what to tell you.
It's the people that watch this later that don't.
I seriously,
yes, people watch it later.
wow.
They used to sometimes.
King Harv's Imperial Coffees. If you like coffee, and you're weird if you don't, get your coffee here. Let them know you heard about it from us. So maybe they'll send us some more, because coffee's what keeps people unstabulated. And last but not least, if you like smart-ass t-shirts, and who doesn't, tinyurl.com. Among the leaves tees, smart-ass t-shirts, your heart's content.
I am currently going through a season of deprivation when it comes to coffee.
Why?
Because my husband, my dear, sweet, wonderful husband,
Whom I know is not cutting you off of coffee.
no, he's not cutting me off from coffee, but he insisted that we use up our oldest coffee, which is a can of the cheap stuff. And I have become spoiled on drinking King Harv's.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be a problem.
Yes.
So I'm like, let's drink this faster. Yeah.
Runs on caffeine and hatred, yes.
I don't run on hatred.
I know, but some of our friends do. Trust me.
I was drinking Folgers when I first got back to the sheriff's office. That's all. I would only drink coffee at the sheriff's office, and it was Folgers. And then I won some sort of raffle thing and got a brick of Ariosa from Arbuckle Coffee.
Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, man.
You get spoiled.
Good coffee really spoils you for Maxwell House or Folgers.
Yeah.
Or in my case, an Aldi's tin of coffee.
Yeah. Hey, AJ, good to see you. Yes, we're looking forward to seeing you next month.
Apparently, AJ's moving here.
Yeah.
Welcome to the gang, AJ.
Yeah.
I'm sorry in advance.
Yeah.
Just remember when you get here, I need to know about any food allergies.
Yes.
I don't like it when people show up, eat my cooking, and then have
Fall over.
reactions to
We
it.
need to know your your spice tolerance too.
Yeah. And your heat tolerance.
Yeah,
Okay.
your tolerance for hot stuff, please.
One
Yes.
would have hoped that he'd done some research before moving down here.
He's been a regular on the chat, but
Yeah. That's food heat tolerance. Food heat tolerance.
chilies. What's your tolerance for chilies?
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of allergies, Rita and I went into town.
Something's chewing on you.
Well, it's still there. She finds perfumes that she thinks would smell good, so and after umpteen years, dozen or more years, she found one I'm allergic to, and I can't get it off. I've washed it 3 times. I've used I've gone as far as lime juice and vinegar. I can still smell it.
Acetone.
Yeah.
It'll dry the heck out of your skin, but it'll break down.
AJ says as hot as you want, as long as there's still more flavor than heat. Yes.
Yes, that's about how I think all of us are.
No, Dorothy is a little.
Dorothy is the weakest of the
She
bunch.
can
And
handle
Julie
a
Pascal.
little these days, but not much.
She's gotten a lot better.
Yes, she has.
She's got a lot. I don't think she realizes how much she can tolerate now.
Yeah.
Because I accidentally ran a chili with competition levels of
Spice.
Chipotle.
But Chipotle is not bad though.
But you don't understand.
The...
She couldn't take Chipotle.
No,
She couldn't.
I know.
I mean, that's
I'm
fine.
just saying that Chipotle, I find something about the smoking process is mutes the Chipotle, so I don't find it nearly as hot. That's why I prefer Chipotle Tabasco.
Well,
it doesn't have as much burn.
The thing is,
Tabasco.
Y'all do realize that the green jalapenos are not ripe.
Yeah.
Any pepper you get is not. If it's green, it's not ripe. if you allow it to ripen to become orange or red, it becomes sweeter and hotter.
Yeah.
So the chipotles jalapenos are allowed to ripen to the full red, and then they're smoked over a wood fire.
Yep.
Smoked till they're dry. And Cedar's right. The smoking does knock a great deal of the heat level off, but it's a little hotter than a green jalapeno to begin with. And the taste on a ripe pepper, ripe chilies is somewhat different than as any other berry.
Yeah.
If you're eating the unripe one, you don't get the taste of ripe berry.
Mm-hmm. I've been letting my Anaheims go all the way to red ripe.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
oh,
those are nice.
Yeah. Hey, Mike. Good to see you.
And hey, Mike.
Mike's deserting us for the East Coast. I can't say I blame him.
At least he's coming off the West Coast. God bless him. I've been worried about you, about Mike out that way.
Yeah. They had another earthquake this morning.
Apparently a 4 something.
Yeah.
Heck, we had an earthquake not too long ago.
Yeah.
And I
felt it.
I never noticed.
I thought I was moving away from all this nonsense.
But if you don't like bell peppers, and there's a lot of people that say I don't like bell peppers.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Get the
try
red ones.
something else. Well, yeah.
The red ones are totally different flavor.
Oh well, I have. I'm growing Coro Doro in the garden this year, which looks like a bell, but it's elongated.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And those things are nice when you let them go all the way to red ripe. But I don't like bells. I grew up not eating bells because they upset my father's stomach. So we never had bells. And we always would grow other kinds of peppers.
Yeah.
So I don't actually like the flavor of a green bell. It's very
I try not
dominant.
to use. I try not to use green bell peppers when I'm doing the Holy Trinity to stop a roux. If I can, I'll use red bells every time because there's a much different flavor.
I've always used green because that's what I was raised on.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
It is
The earthquake was just north of Malibu, 4.8 this morning.
That's a pretty good earthquake.
Statler and
Waldorf and Statler.
Waldorf, really, Mac?
Did somebody just notice this?
Yeah.
Mike, he's feeling his oats today.
Yeah.
I can't see the chat, so I'm just bouncing off of what y'all tell me.
Mike is feeling his oats.
Yeah. Well, that's why I tend to repeat things so that you can get some clue of what's going on.
That.
Where is he moving to? Tennessee, like the rest of them?
I'm not sure.
Apparently, science fiction is military science fiction in particular, but science fiction in general is becoming somewhat localized to southern Tennessee and northern Texas.
Yeah.
Well, when I was looking for jobs trying to get us out of Ohio, I was looking at Tennessee and Texas mostly.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some other places I was looking at. Yeah, well, I found a job here first.
Yeah.
Okay, let me rephrase that. I found a job here paying what I needed it to pay.
Yeah.
Because that was the problem with a lot of the stuff in Tennessee and Kentucky, because we had family there, so I was looking there too, was that the wages were not where they needed to be for me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Tom says Tennessee's full. Well, between Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, a lot of writers in that group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Southern Tennessee around Chattanooga area and North Texas seems to be the where.
See, I like.
They're kind of congregating.
I was really hoping for someplace in the Oak Ridge area, kind of that north central Tennessee.
Yeah.
It's really pretty country there. I would not have mind living there at all.
Jay Kenton, be good to see you next weekend.
Yeah, we're having Pecan next weekend, guys.
And we're waiting on your first novel.
Oh, we're working on that. There are things in the works.
There are many plots afoot.
Yeah.
I would just like to make a quick aside. After yesterday, everybody was, and rightly so, remembering September 11th, and rightly so. But to offset the bittersweet, I would like to point out that several centuries ago on this date, little bitty king of Poland and 3,000 of his annoyed cavalry stomped the absolute pee-wadding crap out of the Ottoman Empire and stopped them in their tracks.
Would this be at the winged hussars around?
Yes.
Yes, that would be correct. 12 September is when Jan III Sobieski,
Yep.
and that was a 20,000 cavalryman charge, guys. That was, to the best of my knowledge, the largest charge in history.
Yeah.
And it was against the might of the Ottoman Empire.
Yep.
Estimated
to be 40,000.
It's hard to that far back, and given the on reporting at the time, it's hard to, but the facts are facts. We do know
it was supposedly 2-1 against.
Yeah, we do know that from eyewitness accounts that the heavy German infantry was holding turf, and then the Polish skirmishers came out of the forest, and occupied and took over a small piece of flat ground.
Yep,
where the Hussars first formed up, and the Ottomans went, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah,
and sent their Sipahis, which crack Ottoman light cavalry, which was a mistake. And when the Ottoman Pasha Mustafa, I could be wrong.
It's Mustafa.
I get the Siege of Vienna and the Siege of Malta mixed up, because in both instances, the Ottoman Empire took a shot to the nads. He sent the Sipahis to run them off, and the Sipahis were like, "Here we go!" And then the Hussars started cantering. It's like, "Do you know what you're doing?"
Yeah,
and they did. For a country that's been stomped over by folks invading east, and then re-stomped over by folks invading west, and stomped over again by folks going back east, Poland has Poland's got a war culture that's every bit as ingrained as ours.
Yeah.
And
thankfully they're fairly small.
What is it? The habitual line crosser, little little European Texas.
Yeah.
Yes, I really enjoy his take on Poland, and I think he's right as far as most of how the constant "let me at him, let me at him, let me at him."
So
Tom knows, does the name Custer mean anything to you?
Wasn't a large. Anyway, so the King of Poland led 3,000 Hussars into the Sipahis and crushed them. I mean, it wasn't even pretty.
And then they kept going.
Well, then he linked up with 17,000 friendly cavalry, and then went against the Janissaries.
Yeah.
And the Janissaries were the Ottoman crack troops. They were the elite.
Yeah.
And it should not have worked. The Janissaries trained against cavalry. They did.
What are they going to do? Oh shit.
Yeah. And then 20,000. And apparently the Polish king was him and his ordnance quality family jewels were right there at the front.
Yeah.
And
leading by example.
And they hit the Janissaries hard.
Yeah.
It went right through like tissue.
Yeah.
And when they got to the Janissaries, they kept going, went right through the Ottoman main encampment.
Yep.
And then when they got to the far side, they turned around and came back because, why not?
Yeah.
And wow.
Well, and that's much similar to what Vlad did. Vlad the Impaler, when he went rampaging.
He was another one that made the Ottoman sultans kind of nervous because, bam.
Well, I mean, he wasn't afraid to do what it was going to take to make them nervous. If that meant 18,000 bodies on stakes.
Yeah.
Lining the approaches to his castle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dagamore does have a valid point. To be fair, the Janissaries never trained against people on horses wearing wings.
No. No, but they had trained against cavalry. That was one of the things. They were shock troops. One of the things they were trained to do was hold against cavalry, and it didn't really work.
Best Halloween yard decorations ever.
I believe it was Vlad Tepes, who is quoted as saying that a virgin could walk from one border to the other naked, carrying a bag of gold coins and be okay.
Yeah.
And Damn,
Yeah, they were shock troops, and yes, they certainly shocked
they were
people.
pretty shocked.
Yeah.
Now the hussars went right through the janissaries, and it was bad. It was should not have happened again. Much like Malta, the Ottomans should have won that one. And sheer brass stones and audacity, nothing else. Fuck it, charge is a plan. It's a plan. It's not plan A, but it's a plan.
Well, and it works well when
they're expecting you to be sneaky, and you just say fuck it and go up the middle. Yeah.
When you do it up the middle, nobody expects that.
No.
Because 99.9% of the time that does not work.
Well, and at the time, I think the janissaries were probably starting to rely on the reputation more than anything.
Yeah.
I think because remember the janissaries got stomped at Malta too.
Well, they were waiting on the heavy German soldiers.
No, they were there for the heavy German infantry.
Yeah.
But again, from childhood, they had trained against cavalry, and it did work.
Yeah. How do you say Leroy Jenkins in Polish?
I believe "fuck it, charge" is the original Polish.
Mongolians versus a certain Middle Eastern desert. Yeah, that too.
Well, I mean, when you're talking about going right up the center and how it doesn't usually work, you immediately go to the charge of the light brigade.
Yeah.
Which was brutal and unnecessary.
Yeah.
I've heard some really interesting takes on
Oh yeah.
the orders that led to that particular disaster.
Yeah.
And it was. I mean, they went up right up the center with people on hills looking down at them, just shooting
with
fish in a
artillery.
barrel.
With artillery.
So
We charged the guns. It's like,
yeah.
and the thing is they didn't. Well, the thing about the light brigade is those silly buggers didn't go, excuse me, sir. They just went, oh, we're supposed to charge. All right. Waxed their mustaches and went.
Yeah.
And there's an argument that that's what led to the Americans being able to win in the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
Because we weren't the wax the mustaches and follow all the rules types, and we had been fighting the French and Indian Wars against people who certainly didn't follow European rules.
I have an hour-long presentation on this very subject.
Damore. The heavy German soldiers were delayed due to a shortage of sausage and cheese. It was the worst case scenario.
Oh.
Damore.
Oh.
Really?
Don't listen. The Americans, a large part of the American blood was Scottish and Irish, Scottish Highlanders and Irish, which didn't fight the way the British did. Strong martial traditions, not necessarily whole bunch of hit and run sneaky shit.
Yeah.
And they
joyful warriors.
Well, and they were hunters.
Scottish. Yes,
they were and skirmishers. They made great skirmishers and crap troops. And then we'd been fighting the Indians, who damn sure if we weren't fighting them, we were allied with them, or we were allied and fighting. But they were shock troops. They were skirmishers.
Yeah.
And we took the whole skirmish thing and ran with it. It's in our DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And the big thing on American troops that I've seen personally is the plain simple fact that we teach our folks that if you lose your commander, or you lose contact with higher command,
you keep going.
Find the nearest fight and kill anybody that doesn't look like you. Whereas the Europeans and the Asians are big on bunker down and wait for contact. And we're like, fuck it, go.
Ron said after Point du Hoc, they lost a lot of people out of his Ranger Battalion, Ranger Company. They kept going, and they were picking up stray troops the whole time.
Yeah.
And the guys were falling into ranks going, okay, where do we go?
Well, the whole little groups of paratroopers.
Yeah.
That,
oh my gosh, yes. World War II.
World War II, when they got dropped for D-Day, and none of them landed in the same grid square.
No.
So they went, I'm by myself. I'm overtrained, overarmed, and over testosterone. Fuck it. That radio tower or that ammo dump infuriates me. I'm going to go blow it up.
Yeah.
You're by yourself. Don't care.
Well, the by yourself thing is interesting. I just picked up a book and just barely started it on the Solomon Islands Coast Watchers.
Yeah.
Who were not supposed to be fighting.
No.
And they certainly couldn't, because generally it was them and whatever indigenous people actually wanted to stick with them.
Yeah. And all they were really doing was reporting aircraft. That was the original plan of the
Right.
Coast Watchers, was
Right.
report
And they
aircraft and report any ships.
And they certainly weren't supposed to be out there by themselves for as long as some of them wound
Yeah.
up stuck out there.
Yeah.
One of the funniest reports I ever read was a series of reports from a German commander in a small town that was way behind the front lines after D-Day. And apparently a couple of American paratroopers had stolen a motorcycle and a sidecar.
Yeah.
And they kept screaming through town at full speed, machine gunning everything that looked like it was German. They didn't hit anything, but they showed up about every 6 hours, just screaming through full blast, and just off into the distance. And the Germans had to mobilize 2 companies trying to find these guys.
Yeah.
Hey, wait, they'd come back. And they didn't hit anything.
They didn't hit anything. They didn't get hit.
I mean, it doesn't matter if they weren't hitting anything. They
Nope.
certainly weren't letting anybody get any rest.
Well,
Nope.
and they were tying up 2 companies
Yeah. Trying to find them.
for 2 guys. I mean, that's not a bad equation.
Mm-hmm.
That the German high command sent an interrogative back to this guy and asked, "How do you know it's Americans?" He said, "Because they're laughing and screaming as they go. It's got to be Americans."
He's not wrong.
Jesse says alcohol may have been involved.
Oh,
Yeah,
paratroopers. Paratroopers.
I was
alcohol,
going to say,
nicotine.
how did they find alcohol? They're in France. Never
Yeah.
mind.
Alcohol and nicotine.
The amount of French wines that disappeared after the landings.
But they tied up 2
Yeah.
German light infantry companies trying to find these guys.
Yeah.
All he did was every hours or just blitz through as fast as they could go, randomly spraying machine gun fire and disappeared into the.
Only Americans and Polish and Indians.
And the Irish and the Scottish
Irish.
Yeah.
and Mad Jack Churchill. And we seem to be attracted culturally to
Chaos.
Misfits, malcontents, and chaos.
yes. I was going to say berserkers, but that's not quite the right word.
That too. The malcontents. It's one of the things that America did was it was welcomed malcontents.
Yeah.
If you couldn't handle the rules and of society where you were, come to America. We got a great huge, and they did, and their
Mhm.
genes have lasted.
Oh, the number of OSS and Jedburghs that were malcontents
Yeah,
and criminals
yeah.
who performed outstanding
Well,
during the war.
the slang term for the SOE, Special Operations Executive, which was the British bunch of malcontents, was the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Yeah.
It was a precursor to the SAS.
Just a fantastic
And it's
title right
Yeah.
there.
and it's because it's like, this is not how gentlemen fight. And
Which
You're
brings us back to the British.
Yeah. Well,
Not quite getting that right.
as Jay Kenton says, the British had the Sikhs and the Gurkhas,
Mm-hmm.
so they had their own set.
well, the Sikhs and the Gurkhas still like order and tradition. They really do. Americans love chaos. They really do. Americans.
Do you really want to meet a smiling Gurkha with a knife?
No, but they're going to follow orders, right? Even if they have to interpret them in creative ways.
Yeah.
I remember that one Gurkha that got in trouble.
Because he brought back the head.
Yeah, they it was in, I think, Afghanistan. It's the recent presidents, either Iraq or Afghanistan. They sent a bunch of Gurkhas out to find this one. Must have been Afghanistan. I think it was Taliban.
Yeah.
One find a Taliban leader, and the Gurkhas found him, and there was a bit of a dust up, and they had to unass the area with a quickness, and they were told to make sure that they got it.
Yeah.
So they come back at a high lope, and the staff officer asked them if they were sure they got the Taliban. And one guy pulled his head out of a bag. Yes, sir. And
He didn't have time for anything more finesse than that.
nope, that was, you want proof? Thwack. Proof I can give you.
Yeah.
And it's a sign of how badly we have slid, or the military, various militaries have slid. That Gurkha got in trouble for that.
Yeah.
Speaking
The other one,
Yeah, and the bandits
hired Gurkha, pulled out his knife, smiled, and
went to town.
16 bandits,
Oof.
16 or 18
that they accounted for.
that they accounted for, yeah.
Well, there was the one they stuck on top of a mud tower and told out in Afghanistan and told to hold this tower.
Yeah.
And he was down to beating Taliban with his machine gun tripod when they finally came and got him.
But he held the tower the entire time.
I found out an interesting little bit of trivia the other day. In the Vale of York Viking Hoard, which was a recent metal detecting discovery, basically it's this really cool little silver cup,
Right.
one of the two-handed cups.
Okay.
And it was full of coins, jewelry, and it was the Viking Hoard that, and as they're going through and looking at it, one of the coins in that cup came from Afghanistan.
It doesn't surprise me.
It didn't surprise
Yeah.
me at all because I've known for a long time that we undoubtedly had far greater trade routes than
Oh, yeah.
were assumed.
People gonna trade.
Right, but now we can
Well-
point at the Silk Roads have been there doing this for a long time.
The Silk Road, and then the fact that the Vikings are past masters. That I wonder what's over that horizon.
Yeah.
And
And acquiring things as
Yeah.
they went.
Well,
yes.
Silk Road, Marco Polo.
So you had Vikings as far as Constantinople.
Yeah.
Just looking around. Hey, anything nailed down?
Yeah.
No, I knew that, but it was also just kind of cool that in Great Britain, in somebody's field, they found this
Yeah.
cup full of coins, and one of them was from Afghanistan of somewhat earlier era.
Yeah, the Varangian Guard.
The Vikings got to the Mediterranean. They were
Yeah.
wandering around the Mediterranean. Hey, does that belong to anybody?
Yeah.
We'll be back.
Yeah. Vikings in New England and Canada, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other
Contrary to
thing, too.
popular history, yes.
Well, and that's the thing of it is when the Vikings went around, who knows where they went to? They weren't exactly organized.
Yeah.
You had one guy go, I have a ship. There's a big ocean, and a whole bunch of other guys went, we'll go with you.
Yeah.
And then they went, and where they got to, who knows?
Well, there are certainly legends and stories, but they get poo-pooed as being, just that.
Until you start finding artifacts.
Right. And that's the thing, is finding artifacts is the trick, because
Yeah.
there's only so much that'll last forever when it's buried in the ground.
Yeah.
or-
However, please do not show me an artifact from more than about 5 miles from the coast.
Yeah.
Or from a river, because the Vikings didn't do that. If there's a coast, there was probably a Viking there.
And again, alcohol may have been involved.
But
Yes.
they didn't get off the boat and wander 10 miles inland to leave a runestone. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's the thing that muddies it, is that there are a lot of other things, hoaxes from over the years, and some of these are
yeah.
very old hoaxes,
Oh, yeah.
which is interesting. The Victorians had a sense of humor.
It amused me. They did a study in Iceland on the genetic history of various Iceland folks.
Yeah.
And came to a very logical conclusion, one that anybody that sit down with a cup of coffee and 10 minutes to ponder would have gone, yeah, that the paternal DNA was out of Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Vikings.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the maternal DNA was out of Ireland.
Yeah.
Mostly. And scientists who, God bless them, a lot more scientists need to get out in the world. We're not exactly sure why this would be. The rest of us are going, we know.
Yeah.
And then they found out, well, the Vikings were probably raiding Ireland for women.
Yeah.
And the
think.
you think, right? And the screaming.
Yeah.
Oh, they wouldn't do that. What?
What?
Vikings wouldn't steal women?
They would not put a plastic skeleton under the new desk. They'd put a skeleton under the new desk, Sarah. It's only lately that people are doing that with plastic skeletons in the corners in the kitchen.
Which I think is funny as hell.
Yeah.
There's a long-standing tradition of burying somebody under the cornerstone of a new building.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone from an infant to...
And the Masons are not to blame for that.
Not yet.
Good Lord, no, it predates them
Yeah.
by a few thousand years.
Well, everybody does know why we smack a ship's hull with champagne or wine, right?
Yes.
Because used to be when you ran a ship into the water or a boat in the water for the first time, you ran it over somebody.
Yeah.
So wine being a somewhat more palatable substitute than running it over Joe the slave.
Yeah, that's another good one, Rick. The Roman widget that turned out to be a knitting tool for making fingers for gloves.
That's...
Eh,
It can be used that way, but that's probably not what it was originally used for.
But here again, we have the argument
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
where one scientist is saying X,
Mm-hmm,
another scientist is saying Y.
mm-hmm.
They are split.
And a craftsman is going, yeah, I still use that
Yeah.
kind of thing to smooth out the interior of a hide.
Rocker, wasn't there some writing from England complaining? Yes, there's actually this very famous complaint about how the Northmen were stealing the wives due to their bathing habits.
Yeah.
Because they actually bathed on Saturdays and combed their hair and kept themselves clean. It's one of the things that one of the things that Chris will go off on a corrosive rant about is watching Viking movies and seeing everybody with unkempt, nasty hair.
Mm-hmm.
Given that everybody, men, women, children, and dogs, get buried with combs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chris will go on a corrosive rant if you show him a historical movie with Vikings with nasty, unkempt hair.
Yeah.
Pretty sure the Vikings had whatever the early precursor to a sauna was.
Yeah.
And if we're going to go with the whole Vikings infiltrated all the way down into the Middle East and stuff, they knew what a bathhouse was.
Yeah.
And the Romans had some lush bathhouses.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, better baths than we have.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Nancy
Top
brings
notch.
up a good point, too. Everything is a fertility symbol until somebody points out that it's a loom weight. Still
Yeah.
used
No
in
kidding.
that area. Yeah.
No kidding.
Also, the amount of things shaped like dicks, honestly, everybody's had that sense of humor.
Yeah.
Since
But not just that.
forever.
Not just that.
The friggin' Romans were drawing them.
Not just that. Anybody
Yeah.
who's been over in command of E3s through E4s,
Yeah, they just had to deal with dicks on something.
you go on an alcohol site, there's phalluses drawn everywhere. I wonder what it means. It means you had a bunch of soldiers here.
Yeah.
Bored ones.
Bored soldiers. They
Yeah.
drew dicks on everything. Problem solved. Problem staying solved. Rangers lead the way.
Yeah.
And the whole fertility goddess symbols that go back to prehistory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, with bored soldiers, you're going to get dicks
Yeah.
and ample women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're bored and dreaming.
I
Yeah.
remember walking. I remember walking through a cantonment one time and finding my little bug snipes had taken cans of Vienna sausages and had themselves a sculpture competition. What they could carve Vienna sausages into.
Oh, and that takes very little imagination.
Yeah.
Their imaginations are very linear.
Damore. That's a proud part of the E4 Mafia. Yes, we drew dicks on everything. It's a secondary skill. Army really should add an MOS identifier for that skill.
Yeah. Yeah, it should
That's
be.
everybody in the friggin' military,
Should be
Damore.
it should be a sub, PH sub.
Art history of dicks.
Yeah.
Like 11 Bravo 30 PH.
Yeah. It's Pompeii.
No, I know. And I mean, there are some wonderfully pornographic Greek pottery, Roman mosaics. As far back as men have been making their mark on the world.
They
Yeah.
have made their mark on the
Yes.
world.
Yes. And you get, I mean, the cave paintings.
Yeah.
Hunting beasts and, well,
Dicks.
Well, like Doug says, first story in the Space Force anthology dealt with a lunar etching.
Yeah.
mhm.
I'm going to be shocked. I will honestly be shocked if after we get to the moon and we're looking around a lot more, if we don't find a cave or a crater somewhere with a dick drawn in it.
Yeah.
Speaking of getting to the moon, not that I'm trying to derail us from dicks, but no, the whole thing with the EVA walk and dragon and getting up to higher than we've gotten before in
Really?
50 years.
Yeah, 400 some odd miles up.
And those spacesuits are amazing.
Yeah.
They aren't the big.
No wonder John is not here. She's been watching the spacesuits.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't watch it live because it was like 5 a.m.
Yeah,
which is
way
I'm
too
getting up
early.
and feeding the cat and getting ready for work. But watching little bits and pieces of it later, and the spacesuits are like a guy in coveralls, not the huge bulky suits that we're used to. So
Really?
it is a thing of beauty.
Yeah,
I mean,
and the biggest
right out of
problem
High
with
Line.
Dragon is they have to depressurize the entire capsule.
The entire
Yes.
capsule. So everybody's
So
got
everybody is in a space.
Yeah, they exposed all 4 people to hard vacuum. But it's a first.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the first time they've done that. It's the first time a privately owned spacewalk has been done.
I'm wondering because I know people, and when they depressurize that capsule, somebody on open mic went shit. When something got exposed to vacuum.
Yeah.
Might have been a can of Coke. I don't know. But something that should have been exposed to vacuum got exposed, and somebody said, shit.
Yeah. Rick says the other one is Kilroy's nose, World War II.
Yes. Yeah, you don't see that as much anymore, I don't think.
Oh, it's still out there.
Okay.
Kilroy's popping up out there.
Yeah. Mysterious hissing noises.
This
No,
gives me hope.
that's Boeing.
Yeah, and evidently the FAA is dragging their feet on
Oh, God.
SpaceX.
Yeah. Well, it's... I had a post on my blog today and my Substack about that. They are purposely going after
Elon.
SpaceX and Musk because he is now supporting Trump.
Yeah.
And they are
Well, he's
purposely
also making NASA look stupid, which
and they are purposely denying through the FAA permission for him to fly Starship.
Does the FAA need an excuse to be nasty? I mean, really?
No, this is worse than usual.
No, I know. I'm not doubting that there's political motivations here in the entrenched in bureaucracy for many reasons.
Trying to use the fact that he wants to bring Starship back to the pad, they're saying that the water pit is illegal.
what's illegal about it?
Who knows?
It's an environmental hazard.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, but yet... And
people are an environmental hazard. Deal with it.
But I posted both the FAA and Elon's response to it.
Oh, but that was interesting.
Yeah, because he actually cites chapter and verse
Yeah.
of the approval process that he went through to get approval for it.
I mean, this is why we went to the moon and then we stopped going to the moon.
Yeah.
Because we got so risk averse
Yes.
that any kind of innovation is immediately squashed because it might be dangerous.
Well, the whole NASA thing with Boeing. Boeing wanted to bring the 2 astronauts back on Starliner. And NASA said no, there was too much potential.
I got to give them
I'm
that.
not sure I trust Boeing there either,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
I see what you're saying, yes.
but it was back channel that I heard is nothing Boeing could have done would have convinced NASA to allow them to bring the astronauts back on.
Well, considering the problems they had getting up there,
Yeah.
I probably would have made the same call at NASA.
Yeah.
It's like you sent up a vessel that wasn't ready, wasn't properly spec'd, and when you make the mistake of building in a material that at the temperature has a completely expected alteration that you didn't expect, even though it's completely expected,
Because they never tested for it.
It's like, no, guys, no, we'll bring them back some other way.
Yeah, and the other thing was, and having done R&D, this just frosts me. Downloading software right before the launch to load another set of software. So all of the automated control software that was supposed to be on Starliner wasn't.
Right. No.
Yeah, and Eric brings up a good point. Not because the innovation is dangerous, because it might threaten existing powers that be and the money
Yeah.
to the contractors.
No, and I'm aware of that.
Well,
But
Boeing,
we also culturally have become so safety first
Yeah.
that it crushes. Well, I mean, as I'm getting ready to do the drafting the first version of the open call for children's stories for Rack Press,
Yeah.
which will be coming out soon. You guys are going to get a little preview
Hey,
there.
Mike, you got any boy stories rattling around that?
One of
squid
the
skull?
things that I mentioned in that is that we don't want stories that put safety first. We want the kids to take some risks and get into a little bit of trouble because that's how they're going to learn. And you aren't going to get to the stars by putting safety first.
Yeah.
I mean,
You don't get out to a frontier safety first. It just
Right.
doesn't happen.
I like-
Safety first is for back home in cities.
Yeah, I like Mike Rowe's motto of safety third.
well, in doing R&D that I did for the government, we took chances on stuff.
Yeah, you have to.
We had to, but there were certain things that I never took a chance on.
Mm-hmm.
One was I required software to be frozen 30 days prior to testing. Because the last thing I wanted was some idiot changing stuff in the middle of a test.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about software is when you change it, you got to give it some time to shake out all the issues.
Well, that means you've got to test the changes,
right.
and there's,
That's your 30 days you're
Yeah.
talking about. You've
Yeah.
got time to test.
Yeah.
To,
but the problem is when you change it the day before the test or during the test,
no,
You're going to get bugs.
you're going to get bugs, you're going to get things that drop out.
blue screen of death in mid-launch.
Well, the classic.
Apparently, Tiffany Ross is jumping up and down.
What is she saying? Oh, she's jumping up and down.
Well, because it's a children's book
Oh.
thing. So she's excited.
Hatch
about
Aiken
that.
screw up the.
We've got some. Yes, Tiffany, we will take. We've got some other plans before you send us a children's book. Okay.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
We're going to talk at Peacock.
I will give you one example, real world example. It happened on one of my tests. We had the Brits down in Australia running a sidebar test on my test. And what they wanted to do was to have this bottom sensor package do a collection. So talking to the scientists, says, okay, this does not seem to be a problem. We can go put it out here in the channel. Now, how long will it take you to get it to come up to speed? And he says, 20 minutes.
Har, 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 har.
Well, it was 20 minutes when it was on land. He was using an acoustic modem to start it. So we're out in effectively a crew boat. For those of you that
Yo ho. Blow,
now a little bit bigger than that, we're effectively in a military crew boat, which is, holds about 20 people. So we've got it deployed over the side, and he's sitting there fiddling with his acoustic modem to get it to start.
Okay.
And we got out there a half an hour early because I figured, just in case. So I've got a destroyer coming down the slot that's supposed to be the first contact. And I'm going, Doc, where are you? He says, it's running a little slow. And I'm looking and I see the destroyer about 8 miles up the channel. And I know they're coming down the channel at 15 knots. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, we got a half an hour. 20 minutes later, I'm going, Doc, where are we? Well, I've got about another 10 minutes. I said, no, you don't. He goes, well, I need 10 more minutes. I said, Doc, you don't have 10 minutes. And he snapped around and looked at me and says, well, what the hell do you, shit.
That's a boat.
Because all he's seeing is the bow of a destroyer. And the E6 that's running the crew boat looks over at me and goes, now? And I went, now. And we moved.
Mike, so we are going to be publishing boys' stories like Three Investigators, Hardy Boys, that sort of thing. And I know that somewhere deep in that squid brain of yours, you have boys' stories. We would like to publish them.
We're specifically going to be doing what are called middle grade books. So
Yeah.
we're looking at accessible to ages 10 and up.
YA, in other words.
Yeah.
We're not calling them YA because YA as a market right now is messed up.
Yeah.
It's all in
So
schools. In schools.
the main characters should be a little older than the projected age range, just not fully grown up. We're looking for probably 40 to 50,000 words.
Adventure stories.
Adventure stories, fun stories.
5 to
Think of
8,000
all the boys' classics
50,000.
that you know and love, and channel that, because there are not enough good books for boys these days. And when I was a children's librarian, I had a heck of a time for the boys that wanted to read. And 10 years later, the situation has only gotten worse. So we know that girls will, like I was a tomboy, I read all the boys' books. So we know that there are girls that are looking for these books too, but we're focused on books with boy protagonists and
Doing boy stuff.
doing boy stuff, taking risks, getting into trouble. Strong preference for their family relationships being wholesome.
Yeah. There are a lot of people commenting.
Yeah,
various
yeah, I'm
options.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But that's what we're looking
Yeah.
for, is we want stuff that boys will enjoy reading, that will keep boys reading, because you see it's almost like a switch being thrown with boys of a certain age, either stop reading entirely or go to only reading nonfiction because there's no fiction that appeals to them anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
Build stuff, burn stuff, pee on stuff. Yeah.
As Don
Yeah.
said, climbing trees, skinning knees, and solving mysteries.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And there are some wonderful examples out there, but we want you guys to take this and run with it, because whether we publish them or you publish them yourselves, we need more
When I made
good boys.
I made
books.
the initial teaser announcement at LibertyCon. I said, boy stories, and it's like Highland Juveniles, the Three Investigators, Hardy Boys, and I had so many ladies afterwards tell me, I like those too. They're not just for boys.
Yeah, we know.
Yes, I know.
That's the point, though. Right now, is that what we're focused on is books that will appeal to boys and
Yeah.
girls.
Girls will read boys fiction.
Yeah.
Boys will not read girls fiction.
If the cover is pink, they're not going to touch it with a 10-foot pole.
And
Richard, it can be science fiction or fantasy.
Science fiction, fantasy, or just sheer mundane, like the
Yeah.
Hardy Boys mysteries. We don't mind as long as it's a fun read.
Mhm. Fun read with just I'd say standard family dynamics.
Yeah.
But that's weird these days.
Yeah.
Well, be weird. Let's do standard family dynamics.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to see kids having friendships. Well, okay, here's what we don't want. We don't want crude language, because we want anybody to be able to pick up these books and not have to worry about warning them that there's the F-bomb in there.
And
That
we're
I would
aiming
have
them at
to work
60.
hard
We're
on.
aiming them at 16-year-olds.
Well, and here's the other thing. We don't want any sexual themes at all.
Yeah.
Just no. Violence is fine if it fits within the plot and it's not excessively gory or described.
No grimdark.
No,
Yeah.
No grimdark. And so what we're looking for is books that you can hand to pretty much any age kid. If the kid can read the book,
Yeah.
you can safely hand this to that kid.
There was a series that I watched as a child every now and then when we actually got TV signal in Africa, called Skippy the Kangaroo. I just now remembered it. Skippy the Kangaroo was Australian.
Yeah.
And it was like Lassie except with a kangaroo.
Yeah.
And it was Skippy the Kangaroo and his boy and the loving family, and the boy got into all sorts of trouble, fell down the well, the whole 9 yards, and Skippy was always out saving the boy.
Yeah.
Skippy the Kangaroo.
And that's the thing too, which is that we can
And we want to
happily-
let kids be kids, as Nancy said.
yes,
Please, God,
yes,
Yeah. No message fiction.
No,
we don't want
message
we don't
fiction.
want the pervy uncle or the aunt with the drinking problems. We want stable families, stable, loving families, and boys going out and being boys.
Right, and the kids might get themselves into trouble they can't get themselves back out of, but they're gonna try.
Yeah.
And we want to see ingenuity. We want to see courage. We want to see these kids really thinking for themselves and not either A, defaulting to an adult immediately, or B, not being willing to approach an adult because adults aren't safe.
Yeah.
Because you see that a lot in children's fiction where the adults are all unsafe or stupid or both.
Yeah.
And we don't want that.
No stupid daddies.
Yeah.
For God's sake, no stupid daddies.
No.
I'm
Absolutely
so
not.
tired of that trope.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, which is that yes, we're asking for the classics, which does lean into there's certain stereotypes and tropes there,
Yeah.
but those things worked and they made kids want to read them. Boys doing brave things and rescuing
Yeah.
someone's kitten. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Out of a tree.
Yeah.
And the middle grade gives us a good age range too, where you can have the climbing trees and skinning knees,
Yeah.
or you can have the group of kids trying to rebuild a crash landed spaceship on a colony planet
Yeah.
so that they can take off and get into orbit themselves.
What is it? Red Planet when Highlands Juvenile set on Mars,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a great juvenile. It's a great kid
Yeah.
story, with older kid story, and it's basically he foils the takeover of the government by
So there's a broad age range there of adventure sets that kids can get into, from the younger ones all the way through the older ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a huge range. Let's have fun with it.
Yeah. Tom says, no stupid daddies. Well, I'm out as an NPC.
Oh, for goodness sakes, Tom.
seriously. And there's a lot of guys. We've already got John Van Stride, guys. There
Yeah.
are a lot of male authors out there that I suspect have some of these stories,
There was a manly squee to be heard. Let's put it that way.
and I want to publish stories for boys like I used to read, because you can't find them these days.
We will be announcing the open call very soon now. We're still framing up the call and the details, but be writing now and be ready, because this is definitely coming and coming soon to a Substack near you.
And quite honestly, if other trends, John is already yelling, "Don't say it."
I didn't give any details.
No, if other trends are holding true for Racketeer Press, about 6 months after launching the first one, the market's going to be saturated.
Well, but here's the thing, which is there's an
Anthologies,
awful lot
anyone?
there's an awful lot of
Is
room.
that bad?
No,
No.
No, hell no.
Then what the fuck is your problem?
Oh, it's not a problem. It's just be aware it's going to be saturated.
And
Yeah,
get it
here's-
out there.
This leads us into the rant y'all were talking about doing and we haven't gotten to yet. Now is a good time to get to it, which is when someone goes in and opens up a market. That is not the time for the other writers to be jealous of that one
No.
having the market
No.
share and getting the money.
Okay.
They are creating more market, more readers for them, for
What-
other
for-
people to enjoy.
I just want people to go to
I have
Monster Hunter Nation blog and read Jealousy in the Writing Business, written by Larry.
I've got so many messages about, I see that anthologies are back. Are you basically because of us?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? How do I feel about it? Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, please, everybody do anthologies. It's great. It's short stories were a dying art.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if everybody on the planet does an anthology, woohoo!
Yeah.
Yay!
And all of the authors that wrote and put stories into a whole crap ton of anthologies can take 8 to 10 of those stories when their rights revert
Yeah.
back to them. And your rights should revert back to you, people. Check your
1
contract
year
before you sign
contract.
it. Rack Press is easy. It's 1
Yeah.
year. Anyhow, they take those stories when their rights revert back to them. They bundle them all together. They write a nice, fresh story that nobody's ever seen before and throw that into the pot to sweeten the deal, and then publish it yourself and get paid again.
Yeah.
Well, just sitting here and talking to Ben Yallow. Yes, you may be jealous. Ben Yallow comes and visits and sits right here. Just talking to Ben Yallow, the number of our Golden Age author heroes that started writing short stories in magazines and anthologies, guys, let's do that again.
Well, if you really look at it, it was magazines and pulps.
Yeah.
There weren't really that many anthologies being put out.
Well, anthologies wasn't a thing.
Yeah, it was not a thing.
You had magazines. I mean, I've got a 1955 magazine. Gosh, the name of it just escaped me. Sitting on my table in my office. I'll show it to you later. And it has a novelette spelled with one T at the end.
Yeah.
And a bunch of short stories in it, and like part of a serial novel by Lee Brackett.
Yeah.
And that's how people read.
Yeah.
They picked up these magazines.
That's how they found Ray Bradbury, and that's how they found
Louis L'Amour.
That's how they found Jerry Pournelle.
Zane Grey, all of them. Yeah.
Yep.
But
I mean, even Charles Dickens serialized his stuff in newspapers back then.
Yeah.
But the newspaper that serialized things that evolved into the magazine that was solely focused on fiction as paper that big. When paper got to be cheaper, which is the origin of pulp. It has to do with
pulp
paper.
Yeah, quality of the paper.
Yeah, and the crappy quality paper, the cheap stuff.
Yeah.
The stuff that has since acidified to a deep brown and is nearly unreadable and has crumbled away. That's what they published pulp on.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing only with electrons because it's cheap.
Yeah.
No, and when I say 6 months after we start launching our boys books and they take off, because they will, that's a good thing. When everybody's doing it, yes.
Yeah.
Success. If we can get everybody, if we can get the market flooded with boy stories, hell yes.
Because we have boys that
will change the publishing
reading,
industry.
And boys that stop reading are stunted in their growth. And we need, and specifically reading fiction, because reading fiction develops your brain in different ways than reading nonfiction.
It's storytelling.
Well, it's not just storytelling. There's a whole bunch of things that fiction does for you as a reader. It changes how you develop and understand emotions, interperson dynamics.
Yeah.
And fiction does so much for us, and the fact that we have boys that drop out and girls that are left with not a lot of choices, and all the girls' choices are targeted towards one thing, which isn't healthy for them either.
Well, my 11-year-old grandson will be 11 tomorrow. Sorry.
Happy birthday, grandkid.
Yeah.
Happy Grandpa Day.
Yeah, but he actually got his mother's phone and was reading one of my stories.
Oh, awesome.
On the Kindle.
Yeah.
Good.
And he was having to come to her going, what does that mean?
Well, and
She's going, you're not supposed to read those words.
Well, okay. But this is why I said let's not put certain things into these books so we don't have to worry about parents having to gatekeep.
But what they've done is she has picked up audibles of some of my books.
Mm-hmm.
And when they go on their camping trips, she'll put the audibles on.
Yeah, while they're traveling.
Yeah, for the traveling.
Yeah.
And that's gotten both Jace and Kaya into reading.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I am somewhat quietly known in certain circles on here. And I went off on a rant, an extended rant at FoolsCon this year, and wound up saying I was going to change something if it hair-lipped every cannibal in the Congo, which everybody found not only memorable but monumentally entertaining, apparently.
Yes.
And this is one of the things. If we are successful with boys' books, the literary industry, publishing industry is they go where the money is, and if we start making money on boys' books, they'll print boys' books. And if everybody's doing boy books, so that boys will start reading again, we win.
Damore, he was actually reading the first of the short stories that I published a couple of months ago. He was reading the ASW story. And he did not quite understand a lot of the technology involved there.
The first ever novel, full-on novel I read was Operation Rhino,
Yeah.
which was a compilation. I actually found the book, compilation of stories about saving black rhinos in South Africa. And it was when I say stories, it was basically journal entries about going out trapping these rhinos and moving them. And I'm 6 or 7 when I read that book, and I thought it was great, but I'm weird.
Well, and that's the other thing that I've said in the call for stories for Rack Press. I don't want you looking at Lexile scores. I don't want you to write down to the kids. They need to learn some vocabulary, and the best way to do that is to either figure it out for context or make them go look it up.
Yeah. Marvel Comics in the 80s did a great thing.
Yeah.
Boys were reading Marvel Comics, and Marvel Comics was using words like sepulcher.
Yeah.
And they were using big words, and boys who read the comics were looking up these words and getting a vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
Bless their hearts, and they went stupid.
Yeah. Jesse, the farm girl. Somebody needs to write the Necroprancer. You can't beat this dead horse.
Oh.
And Dagamore goes back. The hardest part about raising a family as a necro is nowadays they're buried too far apart.
Boy.
Yeah. And on that note, folks, we've wasted another hour of your time.
With rants, I went a little further than I should have.
But please, go read Monster Hunter Nation blog.
Yeah. Larry makes some great points.
Yeah.
Pecan is next week.
What started the whole thing is this female, probably from England, said, I like Brandon Sanderson books, but it's disheartening to see him get tens of millions of dollars on his Kickstarters when there are so many amazing authors I know that struggle with 2,000 on theirs. The money is there, but it's all being funneled to a handful of already rich white guys.
Oh, bullshit.
Yeah.
Oh, bullshit.
If you're a good reader, they will find you.
Writer.
You said
Good
reader.
writer.
No, that's defeatist bullshit.
Yeah.
Um,
So go read it. Larry's rant back is fantastic. He read to show you like get better marketers. Yeah.
Oh, look, there's Teresa, who also owes me stories.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. I can hear Larry in that bad Twitter advice voice. Next Thursday, there will not be a live stream because we will be.
Pecan is next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend. So we will have a Tuesday live stream, but not a Thursday live stream.
Yeah.
Come see us at Pecan. We have announcements.
Yeah.
We are on Sunday. We will have a What's New with Rack Press, and it's going to be educational.
Yeah. As usual. And everybody else, have a good weekend. Be safe. Stay safe. If you're in a
Pecan, not pecan.
Yeah.
We're in Texas. We pronounce pecan correctly.
Yeah. If you're in the path of the hurricane, make sure you've got gas in your vehicles. Make sure you got gas for your generators. And for God's sakes, you've got enough bread and toilet paper and eggs already. Really?
Make French toast. You
Yeah.
got enough eggs and milk and eggs.
And remember, don't sweat the petty stuff. Don't pet the sweaty stuff.
Y'all be safe.
We'll see you later.
Right. Boys' books.
Bye-bye.
Send them to us.